Hi there, I'm Natasha Antonioni with Austin Life, where we cover all things real estate, design, and Austin. Today, we have a very, very special guest, Ingrid Vanderveldt. And there is so much to say and talk about, I don't even know where to begin. So I do have my notes so I don't forget some really key points. Let me just say, this woman has been in every media source that you can think of. So to name them all would be a mouthful. But what was it like to be named one of Oprah's Super Soul 100 global leaders? What was that phone call like?
Well, first of all, I have to just say it's so awesome to be here with you. We've known each other for a long time, and that is such a funny story of how we met. We'll have to talk about that
story. Yes.
So it's so fun to be, like, everything continues to come full circle. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, making the time for us. I know you are a busy lady.
It is a really exciting time for sure. That was when the phone call came about Oprah. It was, what do you say about like a dream come true? And it's, I think even back to my own media days, and I always thought, even at the start of my career, it was like, if I could even do a little piece of what Oprah does to inspire women to live in their fullest potential, I would be just so honored and humbled. And so then to actually get recognized by her, and it's funny because now as I travel the globe and wherever I show up, like that is the thing. It's like, like everybody talks about, wow, you're one of Oprah's top 100 global leaders. And I'm like, yeah, it is pretty amazing, isn't it?
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yes,
really
and
incredible.
so
I'm
just
very
to name
humbled.
a few other ones, NBC, CNBC, Fox, ABC, USA Today, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and it goes on and on from there. So before we get into the amazing accomplishments that you have achieved, I thought it would be fun to go into our story and how we met.
I so love that. I mean, it's just such a great story. Well, and I was even saying when I came over to your house, I'm like, this is just so incredible to see the work that you do now and to think about, even when we both first met and what we were doing, I was doing television and you had this amazing studio. You were.
Can I tell you what that was like for me? Okay, so this idea of build it and they will come? Yeah. So I'm married to this incredibly talented designer, and I had a hair salon, and he designed it and made it beautiful. And I was in my back office that day, totally depressed, because the salon had one client in it, and I was literally I could get choked up thinking about what did I do? We built it and they didn't come. And then this redhead bounces in and she's like, what is this place? Who's the owner? I want to talk to her. And I hear it, but I'm not paying attention because I'm too in my own pity party. And then I come out and I meet you and you're like, oh my God, what is this all about? Tell me the story here. And it was literally the juice that I needed at that moment. It was
awesome.
It was a kind of dark moment, and you were just this bright energy. And then next thing you know, you were doing On the Road with Ivy at the time.
Yeah, and the CNB show of American Made. But when you even saying that, and thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing that, because I think all of us go through that, especially the younger we are, not even young in terms of age, but as we first start out in business, we all have those moments of being like, what the heck did I just do? And like you said, build it and they will come. And those are super scary moments. And it's amazing to hear that, because I remember sitting in your salon. So take that and then flash forward to, I remember the day Farrah Fawcett and Michael Jackson died, because I was in your salon.
Oh.
And all this stuff was going on. The salon is packed and you can't even get your time because you're running around taking care of everybody. And I remember sitting there and I was like, Michael Jackson just
oh my goodness.
And I'm in Natasha's studio. Okay, well, my hair's going to look beautiful. And the thing was just packed. It was totally packed. It was totally you manifested what you struck out to do. which is amazing. And then it was right next to the cupcake shop.
The
it was
vanilla bake shop.
so perfect. I was like, this is like, yeah, all we needed then.
Blow dries and cupcakes.
Blow dries and cupcakes. A little champagne would be like perfect. And then come around the corner to our office where we have our little studio set up. Yeah. Actually, we really didn't do much of the studio there, but that was a fun time.
You were doing your own show, which was On the Road with Ivy, right?
The show that we were, so On the Road with Ivy was more like a web-based show. And then American Made was the CNBC show. So when we were there in Santa Monica, we were doing the CNBC show. We had our offices here and then out there in Santa Monica. So we were doing that out there and just building that venture. And, you know, what better places to be than Austin and Santa Monica for that kind of work?
Yeah. And were you going back and forth a lot at that time? You were?
Yeah. Because we did have studios here, and we had the majority of the production crew was here. And then out there in those offices, I think we had like 6 out there, and then we had like 40 here working on that show. So I was going back and forth. Yeah, crazy.
So then you asked to interview me, which was also like another leg in that prop that I needed at that time. And then you and Lynn, who we will have on the show as well at some point, he's an incredible, he's so many things, but he is a producer, a writer.
Storytelling for Entrepreneurs.
Storytelling for Entrepreneurs is his book. And he just is one of the most kind-hearted, generous people that I know. And so you guys interviewed Dario and myself separately for our 2 businesses, but you also told us about Austin. And we were like in the middle of growing businesses. We weren't thinking about leaving, but you planted a seed. And I remember like maybe a year and a half later, we came here for a visit and we were like, wow, I love this place. This is so amazing.
Do you remember where you stayed when you came?
We stayed at the San Jose Hotel.
That's what I was like, it was one of the cool hotels here in town. And I remember you guys were like bopping around town, and I was checking in with Lynn. I was like, what are they doing? Have you heard? Da, da, da. And we wanted to make sure you were having this great experience.
Amazing time. We were like, this place is awesome. Like, it was not on our radar. So we would not be here if it was not for the both of you.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that, but yay, go Austin.
It's a good place to be. So coming back to you and some of your accomplishments, because there are so many. But at that time, you were working on the 2 shows, and now you are the CEO of Empowering a Billion Women, and there's so much more. You were the first entrepreneur in residence for Dell back in 2011, right?
2011 to 2014.
Amazing, and I want to dive into that a little bit. And you were also overseeing the entrepreneurial initiatives worldwide, helping to build a $250 million business segment, and founded the $125 million Dell Innovators Credit Fund, Dell Founders Club, and the Dell Center for Entrepreneurs. And there is so much more, but let's just pause on that. Like, how did you go from you were interviewing entrepreneurs, right? And you also went to architecture school, so there's that whole design background as well. But how did you go from doing the shows to running that whole division in Dell?
Oh my gosh, that was, well, and it's, as I'm listening to you talk about it, I'm like, this is so nice to have the chance to talk about it, because I think especially now as we're coming through and on the other side of the pandemic, that things that worked in the past don't really work anymore. And things that were important in the past are no longer important. Things that weren't are, and all those things. And I think one of the things coming out of all of this too is this recognition that, you know, I think a lot of us, myself included, you know, we have moments in our career where it's like, oh, you've got a hair salon. Like, that is what you do. Like, you don't have time or energy to go and branch out and do other things. And I think I get even goosebumps talking about it, that even as we sit here in your beautiful home and hearing about the stories of the things that you and Dario are doing, it's really this invitation, if you will, to, like, I think as a society, or like, we're moving into a place where it's like, it's actually not only okay and doable to do different things, but it's doing those things that really bring us joy. So like if anybody listening to this, as they start out in one career, it might completely shift as they, get older and want to try something else. And that's just life. And so I think going from television to what I do today, the television, I loved it. I would have done more, but I, own the company that also got paid to produce the show. And so when it was time to re-up, the television side of me was saying, I'd love to do this. I love the opportunity to reach so many people in one fell swoop and like carry that kind of opportunity to, just spread goodness, if you will. But the business side of me was like, we're actually losing money on this thing, so we can't do that. So, but it's really been very helpful throughout my career to just have that recognition of how powerful media is to connect with so many people at once. And we use that today at Empowering a Billion Women. But going from television to Dell, I'm a very faith-based person, you know that. So everything I do in my life starts from the place of what I feel authentically called to do. And so in 2011, on a dirt road in Dallas, Texas, I was just praying, what is it that you need me to do with my life? How do I serve better? How do I serve more? And I heard this call of Empowering a Billion Women. And I had committed the day before I was driving on that dirt road to turn my life over into service of whatever I was called to do. So when that happened, I had this complete freak out moment. Like, what does that even mean? How do we do that? And then as I chilled out on that, I went into this place of like, basically the penny dropped. And I was reflecting on my career and going, oh, that's why I did media. Oh, that's why I've done tech. That's why, like, all the pieces starting to come together. And the common denominator in 2011 was to reach this many people, to have the potential to. I needed a global technology partner. And Dell was the, like, hands down. And Michael Dell and I shared the same mentor. He's done so much for the city. It's been amazing to watch his journey. And so I just knew that I needed to work with them. And thank God that, they wanted to work with me too.
So when you were doing the Dell programs, it was men and women though, right? Yes.
Yeah, basically the handshake agreement, so like all the behind the scenes stuff is always fun to know. But, I went in there in prayer and I was like, I'm just going to admit why I am here, because I'm going to empower a billion women. At that time, it was
you knew that then.
Yeah. But it sounded like, Lynn even, he's like, please don't tell anybody that. I think you're like nuts, But I didn't know what else to say. I was like, that really is why I'm here. And I know I need a global technology partner. And I have no idea exactly how we're going to do this, but I am called to do this. And the exchange was basically Steve said that, they were really gunning to be the number one end-to-end technology solution provider for entrepreneurs worldwide, which at the time was kind of unheard of, because all of us entrepreneurs were like saving our pennies to buy Apple, and it was like, no, they're an enterprise company. But, it was sort of like I threw down my gauntlet, he threw down his gauntlet, and together we were like, okay, we'll figure this out. And so it emerged out of that. And so there very much was a focus on diversity, inclusion, and really getting these programs that they had set up to invest in women to deliver a return for them. But it also encompassed all entrepreneurship and innovation. It was incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it was like the best training ground to set you up for what was next. Yeah. And you were just saying earlier about how, like, to give ourselves permission to, morph into whatever is next and all of that. But I kind of have this, like, people say that to me too, like, but you're always doing something new. And when I think about that, it doesn't feel like that's true, because there's kind of a golden thread that runs through it all, which for me is about service, right? So whatever I'm doing, I actually don't think it matters what I do. I know I'm here to serve. So it's like, this is I'm the hairdresser cloak. Now I'm the real estate cloak, and whatever else is next. But when I listen to you, I there's a super golden thread through it all. Yeah. Does that seem right for you?
Yeah, and I love that, the golden thread and just living in service. I really think, I just, and what I love encouraging with other women too, especially, I mean, men and women, but especially women, is that what are those gifts that are uniquely yours, that if you allow yourself to really show up in the world in a way that's like, I'm here to authentically serve, what does that begin to look like? And when I think about, this purpose of life, to live this fulfilled life, coming from that place of service, it is amazing when you hand your life over in service, what shows up and what begins to transpire and what begins to just show up. I mean, and the opportunities and the experiences, it's just incredible.
I was thinking about like, how do I put this into a question? So I'm just gonna like throw it up and we'll kind of figure it out together. But when you are a woman that is accomplished, right? A lot of times I feel like, just like the guys watching the football game will be like, oh, what did you do? Oh, he's such an a-hole. How could he miss that? But they're like sitting on their sofa judging the guy that's dedicated his life to this sport, right? And so it's so easy to do that from the sofa, right? And so when you are this woman that's out in the world accomplishing, it's always going to show up where there's that little bit of hater syndrome somewhere, or whatever it is, or that competition or something like that. How have you like moved past that? And before you answer that, I think the thing that I was thinking about in that is that like there's a DNA programming to stay within the tribe. And so when a woman or a human steps out as a leader, you're kind of putting yourself on kind of the outside of the tribal roles for you. And there's almost like a program in us that tells us that we have to stay over here. Don't get too big, because then maybe the tribe won't want you anymore. And back in the day, that would mean that you would probably die, right? Because you didn't have the support of the tribe. So,
you can understand it, but it's too bad that actually is still there, because I think part of what comes along with this, and you might remember, I mean, I always talk about the year of 2017 where prior to that, even in business, like our business was cranking. And then in 2017, minus some gory details, like it was women who came in and just like, we almost lost the business. I mean, we've almost lost the business a few times. It just, and by the business I'm talking about Empowering a Billion Women, EDW. And it was, 2017 was a really, really tough year for me, because I just, as a very faith-based spiritual person as well, with this call on my life to take everything that I've continued to learn and just like get it out to as many people as possible. Because for women, like 80% of women want a mentor. The issue is that 80% of those women want to be mentored by another woman. Mm-hmm. And I understand, but the reality is like only 12% of women ever get over $100,000, less than 2% ever get over 7 figures, less than 0.003 over 8 figures, less than 14% on board. It's like all these numbers there where it's like, if we self-limit ourselves to being like, I want to be mentored by other women, there's only a small pool of women who've actually done that. And
they're probably pretty busy.
Probably pretty busy, yes. Yes, and yes. And so to have this experience happen in 2017 at this stage of my life, when I've turned down so many other opportunities, that very lucrative, that easier play for sure, and it was, I went to a very dark place. I mean, a really dark place. I was just very depressed, very, like I could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. I could not understand what was going on. I couldn't see a way to, almost like I was mad in general. I was mad at women, mm-hmm. and I really wanted to give up. And I was mad at God. Mm-hmm. I was like, why, in prayer, I just kept hearing like, you haven't finished the task. You've got to keep moving forward. And I was mad and angry, and it was just showing up in all different ways. And it's tough. And I think, part of what helped me heal from that was certainly time. Time heals all wounds. Not that we don't ever forget, but just really have learned so much from that. But a woman named Pat Pearson, and then Carrie Marie Moore, you might know her from.
I don't know.
Okay, she's been in the EDW network for a long time. It was one call with her, 2 calls with Pat Pearson, who wrote Stop Self-Sabotage. So 2 calls with Pat, and Pat gave me these strategies to get this anger out. And it was hilarious because Pat is like this world-renowned best-selling author, very polished and amazing. And she was like, okay, so I'm going to tell you what to do. And I was like, yes.
What is it?
What is it? She's like, I want you to take out a couple sheets of paper. And I was like, okay. And she's like, and I want you to draw the name or draw the face of these people who, have done you wrong. And I was like, okay. So then I want you to take that and put it on a pillow. And I was like, okay. And she goes, and I want you to go get a bat.
Nice.
And she's like, and then I want you to pound the shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, as she's talking to me, I was like, this polished, amazing woman. And when she said it, though, it's almost so laughable. And you're like, but the whole...
And it's so not what a woman is supposed to do, right? Yeah.
And she's
Be
like,
nice.
get that out of there. And then she pulled the whole psycho thing of get in the shower and pretend you're stabbing and blah, blah. But it was funny and it was okay. And she's saying, get it out.
Right.
And then Carrie Marie Moore said to me, I don't have human babies. I have 4 4-legged babies. But I always think about the women of EBW as my kids. These are the women that have been called to, really help move forward. And Carrie Marie said to me, she said, Ivy, if somebody told you that you have got to put food on the table for your kids and you had 30 days to do it and you have nothing in the bank, what would you do? And when she said that, I was like, oh, well, that's it. And she goes, what would you do? And I was like, well, how would you do it? And she goes, you know exactly what you do. And that's what you need to do. And it's these simple concepts that sort of bring everything back to center. Okay, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm depressed. I'm not sure I want to move forward. But these simple strategies it's you're not alone. Other people.
And you're also going into it versus avoiding it and then carrying around this armor for the rest of your life, where then you don't get close to women after that because you were too hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have scary moments for sure.
Sure, absolutely. I had a really rough couple of years with a really dear friend, and it just was one of the biggest heartbreaks ever. And then it's okay, just to feel it, which I think is what the whole bat thing is about, right? You're really going into that feeling, and then you can release it.
Yeah.
And then find the love, hopefully, afterwards.
Yeah. And also be okay that if that relationship is meant to move forward, great. And if it's not, I really am very much a believer that people come into our lives for certain seasons, and some are there always, and that's okay. And now I can look at different experiences and just be grateful for that. And I think what it did for me was really give me, especially now, the scale of the work that we do now. I always say I could never do this work had it not been for Dell in the first place. But now as I operate at the capacity that I do, have the opportunity to do, I really, now that sense of discernment has been so helpful. And there's not a lot of time in the day anymore. There never has been for you either, right? But it's I've also gotten really okay with the calling of my life, the choices that I've made, and how am I going to spend those critical few hours in each day allocated to make these things happen. And of course other people are going to doubt, because if they didn't doubt, they'd be doing it.
That's right.
So it's you just have to be willing to step out and okay, let's do this thing.
Yeah, well, your young self knew the truth, which is that if they have a problem with you, not that we shouldn't self-observe, but it's likely their problem, Yeah. So back to EBW, what are you guys up to right now? There's this whole accelerator program. Tell us about the company.
EDW has gone through, its own growth. So it really what we now talk about as the legacy work of EDW, which is really our education mentorship community. And that's really where we're focused on how do we build pipeline of more women who are building past the 6, 7, and eventually 8-figure mark, So that work, resides with the team now that's what they focus on. And then we've built, which has been a ton of fun, the enterprise side of our business, because I just love doing these ridiculous, I'm going to call it a ridiculous deal, because it's like the things that we're doing, it's funny almost. It's like, what are we so essentially we do data, we do distribution. We have a distribution company doing health distribution products, and then we do development. And our development initiatives are both what we do, development of women in the pipeline, but also venture building initiatives. So
you guys are putting together a fund to help launch some of these companies?
We actually have used our own money to do it.
Okay.
And so we haven't established a formal fund.
Okay.
We might do that. But really
That's incredible.
It's been amazing. And again, it's it really goes to speaking on just in that moment of when things are so tough and you want to give up and you can't see the light. Keep taking that next step forward, because it is always right at that moment of breakthrough that those toughest moments happen. So had we not kept walking that journey forward, we wouldn't see anything that's happening today. And so here we, like so many other people, as the pandemic kicked off, I'm looking at our business going, how are we going to survive this thing? And, our job as a business is to support other women, help them survive through. And we're asking ourselves, how are we really going to survive this? And so one of the things that I've found now in many years of doing business is in those really tough moments, in those moments of extreme doubt, in those moments of impossible situations, go back to the basics. It's like we're being backed into a corner, and I was like, okay, how do I remind myself of the basics, and how do I keep helping other women? So I literally stood up. I was like, I'm going to teach this free online course for women to help them understand how to get through the pandemic. And I'm going to remind myself in that process, how have I always gotten through sort of these impossible situations? So literally, as I'm starting to teach this course, and it was only supposed to go over 7 days, at the exact same time, so on March 20th, so basically I just got these calls back to back to back. All those years of heartache and striving and building this global network of women that I'm like, how does this thing actually monetize? Here we are expecting our revenue to come from so many women that they're leaning on us to understand how we even drive revenue. So we're trying to make money from women who really need us to help them figure out how to do it, right? So it's almost like sometimes really asking ourselves, where is our source of capital coming from? And so on March 20th, these 5 calls came in back to back to back. And it was the third call from my younger brother, who's an ER doctor. And he was like, Inc., my family nickname, I've been in the ER. It was 6 days, 8 COVID patients wearing the same mask. The stories you hear so much about, but nobody could get access to these materials. And he said, is there any way with all of your relationships around the world that you might be able to help us? And that was a Friday. And I was in that moment, I knew I had to do something. I just didn't know exactly what, how was I going to do this? But I told him, give me until Sunday. And what I was assessing was, 1, could I help solve the problem? But 2, could I do it in a way that would activate our network and create potentially a sustainable opportunity? Because I didn't know what we were going to do with our business. And by that Sunday, I had assessed the whole supply chain. I had assessed our network globally. By that Monday, stood up this distribution company. We started with PPE to basically, we were going and getting these masks. But within the first, I hadn't even gone through that class. And I'm literally teaching the women in the class. I was I promise you, in these times of like extreme doubt, if you just do these things, and again, I'm reminding myself, just do these.
Teach what you need to learn, right?
Yeah, remind myself what the heck, like how do I actually survive this stuff? And I was like, you do this and like, watch how fast your money will start growing. So I had to pause the class because within 7 days, we had already gone over $1 million in revenue.
Oh my gosh.
Brand new revenue from the brand new business. And then it just like skyrocketed. So I kept having to push the class back because I was like, ladies, I'm telling you, like, okay,
just do it. It works.
Like, do it. Do exactly what I'm teaching you, you know?
Wow.
But it was also very empowering to just be like, yeah, I kind of know something.
Yes.
That I can teach other women. You know, it was like this moment of reminder of like, why are we doing all this? And it's been incredible because now, like, to see all the women, like the companies that, you know, we contract with and the team of people who are here at EDW, we've hired from the network. I mean, we like globally, people on the ground, like I've got a team in Thailand right now, and it's all people from the EDW network.
What is your advice when it comes to getting comfortable being uncomfortable?
I think like when I know I do it for myself and then women that I work with, that in those moments of feeling like super fearful or doubtful about what's going on or just really uncomfortable, like something's not right here and you can't quite get to the bottom of what's really going on, if you actually like just sort of peel that onion back, like I always think about like just chip away at that a little bit more, it always comes down to one simple thing. And that one simple thing is we just didn't do what we told ourselves we're going to do. And if you really are honest with yourself, that is where it comes from. Because it's you've got a desire, you've got something in front of you, and you've talked yourself out of, for whatever, I talk ourselves out of it for whatever reason, or we can't do that now, we don't have enough of this, or don't. The thing that's gnawing at you is you just simply didn't do what you said you were going to do.
Oh, yes.
And if you just go back to that, and like, okay, it immediately brings you back to that center of what's your flagpole. And now the decision is simply, am I going to do it or am I not going to do it?
Yes.
And in that, it's like anything's possible, or you're also accepting, I'm going to live a life, if I don't do it, where basically dissatisfaction, because you know where you ultimately are supposed to go.
Totally. What's next for you?
I'm really excited about this book. I've wanted to have it, I've wanted it to come out for years, but again, I believe in divine timing of everything, and there's a right timing for everything. And so it's called Be the One. And it's, sort of a nod to 1 billion strong, and but it's really this invitation to like, be the one. Be the one that authentically allows yourself to connect with what your real spirit soul call is.
Amazing.
And how do you translate that into something that really gives back in the world in a way that just manifests and grows and expands in every aspect of the world? So what are the steps that you actually take to be the one? And so it's just this really wonderful journey. And I'm speaking about it that way because in full disclosure, I have a woman helping me, and I've worked with ghostwriters in the past, and I'm like, this is not working. And this woman, what is so amazing, Kay Walker, so she, every chapter that we go into, like everything's thought out, there's a system, there's a process, but she's just gracefully like, tell me more about this. Like, oh, I'd want to know this. So she's pulling all of that out.
She's pulling you out of it. Yeah.
And I'm like, thank you. Because kind of like back to the story of teaching.
It must be so therapeutic.
Yes. Because I'm like, okay, right. Yes, I do know this. I mean, the benefit of like getting older. Like, okay, I know some things. But sort of like that class that I taught, and it was like, literally just do what's in that class. Like, just don't overthink it. Like, it is that easy. Just do that and watch how things grow. And the book is the same way. It's
Amazing.
like literally just do these things, and like literally this, by the time you're done, you'll have your playbook for uncovering what that is, how do we actually manifest that in a way that, again, creates this abundance, including financially, to really live your fullest potential. Like, it's sort of like this introduction into all the things that are possible for EBW.
And how do people find EBW?
EBWworldwide.com or EBW2020.com.
All right. Awesome.